Well, here I am back on the spectacular shores of Lake Michigan. This weekend, the Surgeon General struggled to find language that would be historically relevant and serve as an attention-getting wake-up call across generations from my grandparents to my children. He said this week will be our Pearl Harbor moment, with a nod to my grandparents and parents. And he also said this will be our 9/11 moment. That's my generation and our children's generation. But both expressions were meant to grab our attention that, as many of our leaders have said, the COVID-19 crisis is going to be worse this week, horrifically worse. We're watching the death toll in the United States rise. It'll probably go past 1,500 deaths today. And no one is saying we're near the end or even cresting the wave and things are getting better, at least no reasonable person. And I have to remember that those aren't simply numbers or statistics. Those are people. Those are grandparents and parents. Those are children and grandchildren, brothers and sisters, neighbors and friends. A terrible number that will die this week. As I thought this morning, I couldn't help but think that it was perhaps a bit ironic, maybe symbolic and instructive, that this horrible week in the history of the world corresponds with Holy Week, the most important week for Christians throughout history. The week that began yesterday, Palm Sunday, with the triumphal entry of Jesus into Jerusalem, that moves through the week into Good Friday, the horrible day when Jesus died on the cross, and then the glorious end with the resurrection. How interesting that these weeks converge with each other. But I think recognizing that comparison is something that not only gives us a breath of reality, but also of hope. Holy Week is the darkest and the brightest week of all history. It's the week when the sins of the world were laid on the back of Jesus, when wicked men like us nailed him to a cross, the only truly righteous and loving man who has ever lived. And he died, and the hopes and dreams of his followers were dashed. Certainly, many affected by COVID-19 can identify with that tragedy and those emotions this week. But of course, for Christians, the week doesn't end with Good Friday. It's only called Good Friday because of Easter Sunday, when Jesus, just as he promised, rose from the dead, conquered death, conquered sin, giving us great hope. The resurrection guarantees that Jesus is who he said he was. It also guarantees that his promises are true, that in all of our trials, he will be with us. And even beyond that, the wonderful hope, the guarantee of the resurrection, that God is going to have victory. That even as Jesus in his resurrection overcame the tragedy of Good Friday, so ultimately when Jesus comes back, he's going to fix this world, fix everything sin broke. And the world that's now beautiful and broken will become all beautiful again like it was in the beginning. For thousands of years, the prophets looked forward to that day. Jesus talked about when he would make all things new. And so in the midst of tragedy, we also have hope. I trust, my friend, as you walk through this very dark week and the dark weeks to come, that you will find peace and hope in the presence of Jesus, in the promise that he will be with you, and in the glorious promise for the future. He is going to make everything new.